Good morning. Thank you for joining us. You are watching KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. This is the Weekend Boost. I am your host, Paul Lane, and we're so grateful to have you here today. Guys, as always, I like to just talk about a couple of past guests. Todd Fahnestock actually has written over 19 novels. Just finished, I think, his most recent one. But Todd was on the show. We talked about his futuristic fiction novel, Fetch. Dennis Ty was also a guest on our show. And?
No. Those all the way off.
All the way off. Oh.
2 and 3.
Okay.
Hey.
All right, guys. So, if you're just joining us,
technical issues.
Hey, I have trouble with the new cell phone, man. So, anyway, Dennis Ty. This is a 5-star Amazon bestseller. Really a great fictional novel. If you read this, I think you will laugh, you will cry, you will feel sentiment, you will feel connection. Very, very awesome book. And our show sponsor, David Ronquillo, wrote the book Make It Go Away. This is part of a trilogy. If you listen to KUHS, you've probably heard the commercials on his trilogy. But the book Make It Go Away is a really interesting book. When you find out about why the title, where it came from, Make It Go Away, it's a pretty interesting little twist in the book. But David Ronquillo is our show sponsor, and please do order this book either online or through the station. You can get a hold of David Ronquillo, again, through the station, anytime you'd like. I am the author of The Caregiver's Handbook, the Self-Help Love Story, and with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. This morning, I'm so excited and honored to have on our show Dr. Elisa Robyn, who has a resume that will just blow you away. I mean, she's been there, she's done that. And Elisa has a new book out today, not today, but a new book that was just recently released, Dark Fire. And so, Elisa, Doctor, do you mind if I call you Elisa?
Call me Elisa, absolutely.
Okay, Elisa, tell me a little bit about this book. This is a new release.
It's a new release. I actually wrote it during 2020, and then it just took a little while to get it out. And it is on Kindle and in, as you see, hard copy. Mm-hmm. And it is what I'd call a spiritual romantic adventure.
Cool.
Right, which is the genre I write in. Mm-hmm. It is has a few interesting things. There's a partly vampire. There's some healing in the well of the dark and the women of the dark who actually become the dark. There's an octopus that falls in love with a horse. There's a magical closet that dresses her. There's a whole bunch of elements, and yet it's all centered in real life. Like I haven't invented another place. Mm-hmm. It happens in Denver. Mm. All of it happens around the Denver metro and mountain area.
Very cool. Yeah. So there's really, I'm at a loss for words, but just a kind of a parallel or a comparison that, forgive me, I'm at a loss this morning, but so the book is really talking about life itself, and it's just really a kind of an off.
So the book, I'll tell you how it started. I had a friend, this is such a funny story. About 30 years ago, I had a friend who was a bartender, a woman, and she wanted to be a detective. And occasionally some friends and I would show up at this bar, and I spun this story for her of a bartender who, and this is before the internet, who had created some kind of app where she could track people based on what they drank at different bars. And then this guy comes in and she's not sure he's a vampire or not, but he tells her this magic book has been stolen and somebody used it to make Mercury go permanently retrograde.
Wow.
And then she has this pet octopus. There's this whole story I spun for her, and that was like 30 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And I've told this story as just kind of a lark to friends over the years, and they've laughed and loved it. And then 2020 hit, and I was taking a lot of long walks. I didn't even have a dog at this point. I was very alone, and I thought, oh, I should write this story. And I realized there wasn't enough story in the story. Mm-hmm. So I started writing it. I developed the characters, and every day in the morning I'd go for like a 6-mile walk, and the characters would tell me what to do next.
Oh, cool.
And I'd go back and I'd write. Mm-hmm. And then maybe I'd go for a bike ride, and I'd come back and I'd write. And then maybe if I needed to, I'd go for another walk. And every time I'd leave the house, the characters would tell me the next part of the story. Mm. So it started with this little story from 30 years ago, and those elements are still in there. The partly vampire, the octopus that falls in love with the horse that she gets kidnapped, the horse rescues her, all of that's in there. But then the underlying theme became healing our lineage wounds. And for women, how often we will have these lineage wounds where a woman in our past has been betrayed or injured, and how that affects the rest of the preceding generations.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh, we were just talking about this last night.
And
12 generations.
yes, absolutely. And that's the underlying theme in there, where she goes back and heals that generational wound. And my first book, The Way of the Well, it has a similar underlying theme, but a completely different story. So the Dark Fire book, the women become the dark, and not in any evil way, but that dark, you can't have light if you don't have dark. The Way of the Well is based on the myth of Miriam's well, and they're the women of the light who keep the light, the gateways of light open. And so I have a third book planned where the women from Dark Fire meet the women from Way of the Well, and we have this dance of dark and light.
Oh, man. Oh. You know, it's so fascinating how you say that you would go for a walk and the character would tell you how the story is. And so many times, past guests have told me when they're writing fiction, they don't know how the book's going to end. They just start writing, and all of a sudden the book just takes on a life of itself, essentially.
Yeah, the characters become alive, and they write the story. So there's things in this book, in Dark Fire, I have no idea where they came from. I have no idea. There's one of my favorite things in the book is the main character, Tamra, is from, so The Way of the Well starts with Miriam's well. So Miriam, biblical, right? Dark Fire starts with Tamar, which is another biblical figure. And then they're not in any way real. They're not trying to, reinterpret that story. They just start in that lineage. So Tamra, the main character in Dark Fire, at one point goes in her closet to get dressed, and there are clothes there that insist that she wears. Like the closet is saying, no, you have to wear this. And she realizes she never even bought those clothes. And so she has a closet that becomes this concierge for her and tells her what to wear. And she becomes concerned that maybe the closet is sneaking out using her credit card and buying clothing. And there's a concierge, and there's no one in the closet who's dressing her. And I have no idea where I came up with that. But it's a sort of a really fun part of the book that adds to the sort of the depth and she's realizing that how she dresses is helping express this new part of herself.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm sure that there's people out here listening to the show today who are thinking about writing a book, and they don't know where to start, or they don't know how to finish it, and this is exactly what is required. You just start writing. It's page 1. You
just start writing. And what I say to people is, first off, write something that's connected to something you know, right? If you've, my mentor, my writing mentor, wrote a book. For example, she wrote a book about a woman quietly stealing money from a bank for over 30 or 40 years, right?
Wow.
She worked in the bank. So to do that, she went to a bank and she said, could this happen? Could that happen? Can I hang out and watch how the bank operates? Could I shadow a teller? So you can't just make stuff up without knowing something, right? And then how would you tell that story in a way that is from a positive point of view and also from a negative point of view? So that you really immerse yourself in it, and then you let the characters write the story.
So cool. Yes. Developing the characters is really not the effort. The effort is just page 1.
The effort is page 1. It's so funny. I actually have a guest coming on my show next week who is a writing coach.
Oh, wow.
And she said so many people say to her, how do I write? I want to be a best-selling author. And she goes, okay, first we have to write a book. And they look at her like, how do I write a book?
Yeah.
Right? I want to be a bestseller, but I don't know how to write a book.
Wow.
So yeah, it's words on paper, or words telling story,
Mm-hmm.
because I told a lot of the story out loud before I put it into onto paper. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Wow. So there's so many dynamics to this, and yet it's so simple. It's really just a matter of a decision.
Yeah.
When you wrote this book, tell me, what are some of the things that you took away from it? I mean, I know that when you write a book, there's things that you grasp, that you take ownership of, or and tell me a little bit about that.
That's a great question, because you're learning. I was learning about myself while I was writing the book. So on many levels, for one piece, I learned my flaws in writing, right? How I might repeat a phrase, and how I needed to just pay attention. That was one. But on a much deeper level, I learned more about my story that showed up. I learned, well, like I just said to you, and this is so funny, here's this closet. It's saying to this woman, it's not even saying anything, it's just presenting her with clothing. And the clothing makes her feel a certain way. In my life, I'll go out shopping with a girlfriend, and I'm suddenly buying clothes for a job I don't have. And she'll say to me, 6 months from now, something's changing in your life.
Wow.
Because I'm dressing in a way that's inviting something into my life. And it showed up in the book. And I didn't put those two together immediately, right? There are phrases in there. She's falling in love with this count who's actually a partly vampire and not a full vampire, and they have this conversation. He says to her, I know you've been wounded, and I'm writing this piece and crying.
Wow. Wow.
Like, oh my gosh, yes, this is how I've been wounded. But I don't have to stay with that wound.
Absolutely.
Right.
You're not bound to it. You were,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you've created the whole story, so you are it's at your leisure as to
That's right.
how far behind you push it, or far away from yourself.
Absolutely.
Or if you grasp it, you know.
Right.
So
yeah, and there's another interesting piece in the story. So it has a Jewish flavor. Okay, I'm Jewish, so everything I do has a little bit of a Jewish flavor. And when I was writing it, so Tamra goes to the pool of darkness, right? And she's immersed in the pool, and she discovers the pool, and it's this beautiful warm water that she sinks down into and travels into herself, let's say, okay? But it's how she also helps heal other women. So she's not just healing herself, part of this is healing other women. And that after some of this experience, she goes to this restaurant bar that she's running, and she's now aware of things around her. She's very aware that her staff is struggling financially. And she starts to cry and say, how did I not know this? How did I started this thinking I was paying people well and helping them. How did I not know they were struggling?
wow.
And now that I know, I have to change the financial layout of this entire business. You know, I've never read that in any spiritual romantic adventure book where the person goes back and realizes that spiritual growth means you change something physical in your life.
Right.
That you apply it somewhere else, and boom, there it was, social justice in the middle of a spiritual adventure book.
Oh my goodness. And so there's a lot of messages that are involved in this not just the title, but the ending of the book, the outcome.
Right, yeah.
If somebody wanted to buy any of your books, where would they go?
Amazon.
Amazon,
So
guys.
if you go to Amazon, and I have 3 books. This is my one I'm really pushing now. So Dark Fire and Way of the Well are the 2 novels. They're both on Kindle, and also in, I guess they're paperback, but I say hard copy. You can get them either way, that way. And the other book I wrote, which is just a fun book, I wrote it with one of my best friends, who I reported to her. She was the vice president, I was the academic dean. It's called Pirate Wisdom, and it's a leadership book.
Yes.
And it's funny, but it was my way of understanding that wherever you work, in fact, wherever you are, if there's 2 people involved, there's politics. And how do you navigate politics? And you do it like a pirate. And that was my reputation wherever I was as an academic dean.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, and so all of them are on Amazon, and I think the first 2 are also on BarnesandNoble.com. but this last one, and it's my press, it's on the Loose Press,
Yes.
and they're, if you have Kindle Unlimited, I think it's free on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, cool.
And you know what, if you're listening out there, I have some Kindle copies that I could send out to people if somebody's listening. And what you need to do is you need to email me. And you can go to my website, elisarobyn.com. You can sign up for my weekly or every other week mailings. It's my blog and a couple links. And if you then message me from there, I will send you, because I need your email to do this, I can actually send out a few, like maybe the first 5 people who do this, a free Kindle version of the book if you'd like to read it.
So cool.
I have some of those, yeah.
Also, you know, Dr. Elisa has her own radio talk show that is every Tuesday?
Every other Thursday,
Or Thursday.
at 11 Mountain Standard Time.
Okay.
And what happens now, I've changed the format a bit. So I have a guest often for the first half, and then the second half is Life on the Loose.
Oh, cool.
And what does that mean, and how do we riff off of it? So like I said, this coming week, Dana Ellington, who is the owner of Nowata Press, she's a writing coach. She also helped me, the cover a friend did for me, and the formatting for Kindle I did myself. But the inside formatting I was a little afraid to do, because that's not my
It's
forte.
tricky,
It's
yeah.
tricky. And she was so reasonably priced and so helpful, and she set the whole thing up for me in a very short time, and I was able to get it up on Amazon.
Oh my gosh, this is such a great thing to talk about, because when you're writing a book, you don't realize that there's so many different sizes of the book. There's so many font sizes that you can get.
Oh my gosh.
When you find your editor, make sure that you just take good care of that editor, because
That's
I
right.
had like 8 different editors. You know, finally my nephew Mitchell McConnell helped me. But oh my gosh, when I finally got it all put together and I sent it in for print, Eli Biden, an individual that I know, put all the formatting together.
Right,
And
yeah.
I could have never done it.
No.
And so, you know, so when you're writing a book, it takes a lot more than just the person on the typewriter.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was writing the book, and then it occurred to me, oh, I need a cover. Oh, I know a graphic designer. I actually know like half a dozen. But this guy, he knows me. Well, he'll do a cover for me. Well, he did, but he did like half a dozen other covers. Like, which one do you like? And I have 2 other covers I'm saving for future books.
Oh, cool.
So you got to have a cover. Then somebody really should edit it. Somebody has to read it.
Yes.
Right, and because even though you have spell check on the computer, there were things I didn't realize, words I repeated over and over again, just things you want someone to catch. You know, like it's set in a certain time of year, you want to make sure your description of the weather matches that time of year where you are, so there's things like that.
Yes.
And then, so there's an editor. And then, like I said, if you're self-publishing, Kindle's pretty easy. You can get it up on Kindle pretty easily. But the hard copy is a little trickier.
Yes, it is.
And you might want somebody to help. And as I said, this one guest is amazing at this. But so there's all those other things to think about. The other part is you have to be willing to go out and talk about your book. I'm starting to get out now to reading groups that all come out, and I'll talk about writing and talk about the book, talk about healing lineage wounds, all those elements of the book that you put it out there and you wait for 1,000 people to buy it, and it just doesn't happen all by itself.
Yep. You write the book and you think, I'm going to be a best-selling author,
I'm going to be a best-selling author, right?
And it's like, well, it just doesn't happen overnight. It's something that takes extreme amounts of dedication, of work, effort.
Right.
There's a thing that a lot of people don't realize, that on the back of the book there's this little white tag right here, and there's a little number back in here, and it's called the ISBN. I don't know what that stands for, but you have to have that if you write a book.
You have to have it. You don't have to have it on Kindle.
Right.
You have to have it on a hard copy. And so that's how you search for a book. And depending on how you publish your book, you may have to go out and pay for an ISBN.
Yes.
Or if you use, which I did, self-publishing, sometimes it's included.
Oh, cool.
So this one, because I put it up myself on Amazon, Amazon gave me an ISBN.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because when I got mine, I had to go through LegalZoom. When
Yes.
LegalZoom was just
Yes.
new, and I used them, but they gave me like 8 ISBN numbers too.
Right, yeah.
So that
Right,
was
it's
kind
not,
of
they're
cool.
not very expensive.
Yeah.
But there's just all these little pieces you have to think about.
Yes, the
to get-
details.
Absolutely.
Copyright.
Everything. And
Everything,
so,
yes.
for the first 2 books I used a different publishing company, and then for this one I had, like I said, this help, and then I just put it up myself. But there's all those elements, and I think the other piece that people don't understand is you have to understand why you wrote it, what it is, how you would talk about it, what people want to hear. So my other joke is my steady. We've now been together for 1.5 years.
Oh, cool. Good for you.
He hasn't read the whole book yet, but I was telling him, I wrote it before I met him. And I told him, I've never written a sex scene before, but they fall in love in the book. And so and I've heard people say, oh, they're really hard to write, you gotta be in the right mood. And he's like, well, where are they? And so when the book came out, he went to chapter 23, which is the first time they have sex, and then read, I think, from there back and said, not bad. I think you did okay.
From their back.
Part of the book. I think you did okay on that part of the book.
Isn't that interesting how men and women perceive a scene so differently? I mean, we were talking a little bit about that before the show this morning.
Right.
And men have this very, I don't know, very, I guess, superficial perspective of love. And I can honestly say that I've come a long way myself. But I've noticed that in men, and present company included, that men sometimes see a scene that's an emotional scene, and they don't take away from it the same thing women do. And so when you're writing that book, you have to really stay focused on and aware of who your audience is and how they're perceiving what you're writing too.
And in fact, so here's a funny thing. I have a friend who's written a couple books, and we, in the early stages, exchanged the books and said, I'll give it a read for you and give you some feedback. Well, his feedback was they should have sex by chapter 3. I'm like, it's not a book about erotica, and women don't like that. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, he goes, really? Like, yes, really. Women, we like to build up the relationship and the sexual tension and then see that there's a point where it feels right. Mm-hmm. And it's not chapter 3. Right?
I get it. It's like I finally come to a point in my life where I've realized that a kiss on the forehead is probably one of the most sexiest things a guy can do when he's walking by his woman or his girlfriend or his wife.
A kiss on her hand.
Or a kiss on her hand.
And her palm especially. Yeah. Women kiss her palm especially.
And, grasp and ability to make a story that is going to reach the people that you're trying to reach through your writing.
Yeah, and so there's another piece, and you said it. Who's the book for? He wrote a book that women might like part of his book, I think, but definitely from a masculine point of view, and that's perfectly fine. That's who he is. I don't write that, right? And so I have had some men read it and really enjoy it. I wrote it thinking that the audience was going to be women who would key into this lineage wound, but also the mystery and the magic and the Kraken shows up in there, and the women turn into mermaids, and at some point, sort of sirens. They turn into sirens in the dark, and he actually thought that Count, who's this main male character, was the hero, and I said, no, he's not the hero. He gets all of his energy from her. Mm-hmm. She's the hero of the book. So it's a very different perspective. Wow. And you just have to be, it doesn't make one right or wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just who's going to immerse themselves in this book and experience it the way you hope somebody does.
Yes. Now, right now, I'm sure you've heard and you're aware of the great awakening that seems to be taking place worldwide. Yeah. And this book really makes me think that this is really very appropriate or very timely for this time in history. I mean, it really is. Right. And people are more and more open, and they want to have fantasy. They want to have a life that's not real, but yet that is real, that they can align with their own values and beliefs. And
it's an interesting thing. And so I can tell you astrologically that later, very soon this year, 2 major planets, Neptune, which is the planet that governs our dreams and our mystical side and our psychic side. It's also governs where we zone out. So like you might drink a little too much wine or watch, sort of binge watch TV, but where we try to get out of our mental state into this deep emotional place. and it will be next to, hanging out with, right, what we could say conjunct, Jupiter, the planet that expands, whatever it's next to. And they'll be in Pisces, which is the sign of the mystic and the emotional psychic.
So there's potential for a lot of magic.
Yes, a lot of magic. And I think as the United States has moved away in many ways from religion, though, I mean, we do have some people moving back that way, but as a country overall, we're moving sort of back into what is a spiritual experience? And how do I have that? And we see people coming back to wanting an experience of the mystical.
Yes.
Right? And so astrologically, I think it's timely. I feel like women are feeling right now like, oh my gosh, why are people trying to take us back to the 1950s? It wasn't that great of a time period for women, people of color, LGBTQ. It was not a good time. No, let's keep moving in, and for some of that we need spiritual courage.
And it takes someone being willing to step forward and really
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You talked a little bit about the stars, and I have to just talk about that beautiful full moon last night. That was so
gorgeous.
cool, man.
Was that cool? Yeah.
Yes, I'm really big in crystals now. I've really learned a lot, and I've begun to really use them. And we got all of our crystals out. And this morning I said I can't leave those out. I'm taking them in and doing.
Right now, let the moon shine on them.
Yes.
I know. I brought my newest crystal ball.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. So it's so funny. I almost everyone I know has like tarot cards, reads tarot. I started with tarot. I moved into astrology, and I do love astrology. I also am the only one I know who uses a crystal ball. And
it's very unusual.
It's very unusual. I love them. I've taught classes in it. And you got to get, I have a PhD in psychology, so I kind of have both sides of myself. But in the book, and in fact both of the novels, the women use something similar to a crystal ball to communicate, which is a glass of red wine.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about the red wine.
With the candle. And that is how I learned to read a crystal ball. And so there's something, again, I went to a gem and mineral show, and people were just enamored of the beauty of it. And my first degree is in geology. I have a master's in geology.
Oh, wow.
Master's in geology, PhD in psychology. And so there's something about minerals for me that is just, right,
I so relate. I can so relate to that, man. So what is this stone? What is this crystal here?
So this is it's quartzite, which is a rock, and then the red. So that's the white and gray, and then the red in here are the edges of pink tourmaline.
Oh, okay.
And I found it at a show and thought this is just incredibly
it's beautiful,
and thought I'd bring it with me.
That is so cool.
A little bit of flavor today.
I just picked up a black tourmaline sphere, and
beautiful.
it's a little smaller than that, but I mean it is so cool.
They're so cool.
I also, my wife bought me a black tourmaline necklace, and I couldn't find it. I was going to put it on this morning, and I realized I left it outside on the chair.
I know, there's just something about, and crystal balls, the fact that you can hold them.
Yes, they feel so good in your hand.
They just feel so good. So that shows up in the book too. So I feel like when I write these books, the psychology part of me shows up, the professor, the academic dean, but the spiritual side shows up, and the mystical side shows up, and they dance together in my fiction.
Too cool.
Yeah.
So it brings together an atmosphere of science and mysticism and magic and fantasy, and just really a very balanced book. It sounds like.
I think they dance together well. You know, like I said, there's an octopus in here, and while she's a little bit, she's a pet octopus. And while she interacts in an interesting way that may not be real, everything I have about the octopus in the book is scientifically based.
Wow.
So I haven't invented an octopus that lives 100 years. That's science-based, right? The mystical side is absolutely mystical, but I do believe people who do spiritual journeys of any kind, do any kind of vision journeys, vision quests, deep meditation, will find that element in this book.
Nice.
Even though the way I weave it might be different, they'll understand the process and the elements of it.
So cool. I love it. I think it's going to be a very successful book. Have you gotten it in the tattered cover yet? Just
I'm
curious.
not. I need to. I just ordered my own, so I need to take it to the tattered cover. I need to take one to the library. I'd like to ask the tattered cover if I can do a reading, perhaps there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so what I'd also love to do is get in with women's reading or just reading groups, book clubs, and maybe come and talk about the process of writing, read some of the elements of the book. I've had people say to me, this is so funny. So there's a partly vampire. There's actually two partly vampires. And someone said to me, they can't be a partly vampire. It's my book, right? And they don't drink blood, but they pull people's essence.
Wow.
And that telling the story to people of blood is a way of communicating. They're stealing your life force, because that's what blood is.
Blood is
right?
life.
It's our life force.
Wow.
And people said to me, that's not what a vampire is. Well, excuse me, I didn't know there were scientific studies around exactly what a vampire is. These are my vampires. And this
Shall we
is
go to the Webster's definition?
That's right. And my vampires, there's a man and a woman. The woman actually ends up either being gay or bisexual, and she's a little mysterious. And they know this piece of themselves where they've chosen to not use that in a way that harms people, but in a way that can help.
Wow.
And so they had choice about how to use this part of them, this magical sort of strength they have.
Wow. Wow. So that really brings a different dynamic, even a new dynamic, because there's restraint that's involved in there.
That's right. Absolutely.
There's so much. I think restraint's a word that comes to mind, and so when you have someone with that much influence or power, then they do have to be cognizant of how powerful they are.
Right, and so what I started to realize when I'm writing it, and some of it's just story, I don't realize anything, and then I read it later and think, oh my gosh, so they're making a choice. They're making a choice and in that moment, I can commit that way, or I can commit this way. Which way do I go? Right? That way actually looks evil. And it looks easier. Right? It looks easier to hurt people and feel powerful than it looks it takes more strength to use this power in a way that is supportive. And
wow.
Right? That's harder. It's so much easier to just be mean.
Oh my
sometimes.
gosh. I'm reminded of a scene in Schindler's List when this Nazi was so cruel and so mean, and Schindler says, think about being kind, you know?
That's harder.
Just be kind, and how much more difficult it is, and
right.
that restraint was so,
right.
and yet he was able to practice it, and you know, it was like, oh my gosh, it was so gut-wrenching to see that this individual was so cruel, and yet he was able to have a little bit of influence and turn his whole perspective around. You know?
I know, and I think that's. We talk about it's easy to be kind, and it's true. It is easy to be kind. It's also easy to be mean, and it's a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice, and we'll look back on it and say, "Why did I do that?"
Why did I do that?
I did right. You know.
I know. I'm actually reading this book right now about the power of regret. So a lot of people will say, "Never have, no regrets. I have no regrets." I don't think that's real. I think that regret helps us look and
oh my gosh.
grow and change.
Yep.
And say I'm sorry to people.
Yeah.
Right? One of the things I've started doing each week, so Shabbat is sort of the Jewish Sabbath, right? And Friday night I have this list of probably, 20 friends and family that I send out a Shabbat Shalom. May you have a Sabbath of peace text to. And the text says what I'm grateful for that week.
Wow.
And then I get all these back. Here's what I'm grateful for. Here's what I'm grateful for. And it's this lovely touch point.
Fill up your tank,
That's right. That's right. And then I've also started this practice now of handwriting a letter to someone in my life and to say I value you and thank you.
Wow.
Handwriting it, putting it in a mailbox so that they get it and can read it and reread it. It's not on the computer. It's something I took the time and effort.
From your very own hand.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow, that's really important.
Right. So it takes a little more work, but it's just so incredibly powerful to just say thank you to someone.
Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey folks, if you're just joining us, you're watching KUHS The Stream on Melody Drive. This is the Weekend Boost, and I'm your host, Paul Lane, author of The Caregiver's Handbook. We are talking to Dr. Elisa Robyn about her new book, Dark Fire. But actually, we're actually touching a little bit on The Way of the Well and Pirate Wisdom, her third book. And so this is a leadership book, and these two books are more fun, but there's a lot of really life experiences in here that are perspective sometimes.
Right. And, for some people, I have some dear friends, they do it in their art. They sketch, they paint, that's how they do it. Other friends who do it in music or in dance or wherever, teaching leadership classes. I wanted to be a writer since I learned how to read. And my blogs, I've learned, are a way of me making sense of my life and then sharing that, and hopefully in the sharing, giving people the courage to admit and to accept what's going on in their life. So writing for me is just so powerful.
It really is. And there's a saying that the pen is more powerful than the sword. And
right.
It is so true, because
it's so true.
I mean, I can point out a few books in my life, several books in my life that have made a bit of a turning point for me. And someone else's wisdom inside someone else's experience has been exactly what I needed at that time in my life. And perhaps you're looking for a book right now, and this is a book that definitely is worth the read, guys.
I actually had somebody contact me and say that, so there's a part in there too, so she's got this octopus, the octopus gets kidnapped. I don't want to give it all away, right? But at some point, the octopus goes to the Denver aquarium, and she's lonely. And so she imagines this dog. And I, during 2020, I had to put my dog down, the very beginning of 2020. And when I would go hiking, I started having an imaginary dog with me for company, right? And I had a woman write me when she read that part of the book and said, thank you for giving me permission to sort of imagine safety around me, to create something else, to realize I could feel it even if it wasn't there. So there's elements of the book that touch people that I had no idea would touch them.
Wow. So there's points in the book that someone else is going to pick up that you didn't even realize.
I didn't even realize.
So that just the universe is just really
That's right.
helping you to, and so as your characters are giving you this information, they're actually putting valuable tips in the book that you don't even see coming.
I don't even see it. I don't even, and sometimes I don't know if you've done this, but they'll argue with me. Like, I know I came back at one point and I was writing, I'm like, this makes no sense to me. And basically they're saying, just, we told you where the book goes, just write the book. Here it is. You can't, I went for another walk, they're like, we're not giving you anything else until you write that. Okay, I have no idea why that's in the book, but it's in the book.
Wow.
So it was very, very powerful. And again, my mentor has said to me that's when you're truly writing, when you are that engaged, as opposed to thinking that you just have a great story to tell. I'm sure that happened. You had a great story to tell. You wrote a book, but I think there's the same thing happened, where things come out of you into the book that you had no idea would show up there.
Absolutely. There's times when I'll pick up the book and I'll graze through it, and it's like, oh wow, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe I thought that. That was profound.
I know. I do that with both of them. Definitely the first one, and the second one I haven't done as much reread yet, right? I've read a couple places where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I said. And when I go back through the editing, wow, I don't know where that came from.
That?
Where did I get that? Right? So it's not like I took things I studied and then inserted them. It's just sort of a flow of again, that dance of the spiritual, maybe the right and left side of my brain coming together and dancing and coming out on paper.
Jeez, I think that is it makes perfect sense. It's like, I don't know, it's like you've almost created another being that has energy, that has ability to you know, it says as metal sharpens metal, the mind of one person
Right.
sharpens the mind of another. And this book
Right.
actually becomes like a sharpening stone
Right.
that enhances your writing ability. Would
Yes,
you say
yeah.
that makes sense? Or?
Yeah. I definitely have had friends say that the second book was better than the first. I have some people who like the first one better, but that as I wrote and let myself just write instead of expecting it, like some people write by mapping it out. Now, I've written academically for years, right? And you have to kind of do that.
It's a different animal.
It's a different, right? And you have to kind of do that. But even there, I always needed a writing partner because that's difficult for me, right? Outlines are not my thing. And so I would kind of let it flow, and then my writing partner would rearrange it and tell me where there were gaps.
Oh, so that's
Right?
very important to have, yeah.
Right. But when you're writing maybe a self-help book, I could see where you might start with the chapters. It's not my style. And so I think some of writing is also acknowledging your style. That if it is about storyboarding and whiteboards and organizing, awesome. Mine
I'm
is
like
not.
that. I'm abstract. It's like, okay, page 1, you know,
There
that's
we go, right? And then sometimes you have to go back and redo. And I also tried to write it in third person, and it just didn't work. And I went back and first person. Both the novels are first person, and it's the only way I could write it.
Yeah, that's so important because you have to understand where you're coming from, not only what you're trying to convey, but where am I coming from? Like you say, am I writing this from a third person perspective? Am I writing first person? You know, am I just making an observation? Or,
Right.
you know, so it's really, there's so much to consider and so much to, you know, when you're putting it down that you just have to just be persistent and just keep writing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think the hardest part about writing, and I don't know if you find this, so I have a blog. If people go to my website, they can sign up. Blog comes out probably every other week, so there's not a lot of email that goes out. And I attach the link to the radio show and upcoming events, and so but there's probably a 4-paragraph blog, so they're not very long. The hardest thing is like sending that out in the universe, and there's not even an echo that comes back.
Oh man, I get it.
Right? So you write this, and it's like your child, or it's maybe you naked, and you send it out, and no one said. And I've had people in my life who've read it, not this book. I've gotten better about who I send it to, but the first book, the first novel, and never said a word to me. And then when I'd even go back, these were friends. They're like, I can't remember if I read it, and I realized they want to write a book, and me writing a book made them feel a little intimidated.
Inferior almost.
And so
Intimidated,
you
yes.
get this like emptiness. You get this lack of feedback. What I love is feedback, which again is why I'm willing at 5 people, the first 5 who do this, I'm going to send you a Kindle copy, and all I'm going to ask back is give me some feedback, because it's so hard. I imagine it to be like a painter. You do a work of art, you hang it, and people just walk by it and never say a word to you.
Or you make a delicious meal and everyone
And
eats it
people
and no one
eat it,
says, oh, that was good, or
And they
that
just
was...
walk off and watch TV.
Oh my gosh, that is hollow.
Right.
And I totally agree. Now, on the other hand, during editing, I had to realize, I came to realize that, man, I needed to get more thick skin, because if you have an honest editor, your editor should be willing to open up and say, hey, man, this has to go. This is not right, you know,
Right.
or this is great, you know. And so having that other party, you know, that outside influence or outside opinion is so important, because it really keeps you on track.
Right. And I think that it's where you know, we're raised in this world of getting A's, and we want A's. Everybody wants an A.
Wow.
And you have to, I think when you're writing a book, you're not trying to get an A. You're trying to be expressive and do something that is important to you, and hopefully would be important to somebody else. And in fact, one of the publishers I talked to, and this was a while ago, asked me if I had a degree in English, and I said no. And she said, do you have a degree in writing? And I said no, and she said good. Because what I want from you is reality and not how to write.
Absolutely.
Right, and I'm not putting down anyone with an MFA in writing. They do beautiful, beautiful work, and for the people for whom that kind of experience is good, right? It's wonderful. Mine, I came at it a different way.
You didn't have to unlearn everything. You were able to come in and be a student.
Right, and then let friends read it. So as I was writing it, I was sending chapters out to friends.
Okay.
Who would then say, you know, go back and check blah blah blah, or didn't like this one as much as I mean they would, but it was more it was honest feedback, right? One chapter was, why is this here? Like one of my friends said, I don't know why this chapter's here. I said, I don't know either. Let me keep writing and then tell me if it makes sense later. And then later, it was a dinner party. Later, she said, oh yeah, of course, because you had to bring all the characters together and they had to have this meal and okay, I get it. Right? I get this is where you met these other people. Now it makes sense. Right? So you have, I agree, thick skin.
Thick skin. I got to tell you, there's a book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Right, yeah.
Best-selling book. If you ever read that book and you want to see a book that was poorly edited,
oh my gosh.
I've read that book, you know, and just I stumbled upon it, you know, but it's like, oh my gosh, this was a bestseller. So even throughout with flaws, the book still is going to reach who it's supposed to reach. Who it's supposed to reach.
There are so many bestsellers out there. I remember Women Who Run with Wolves. It's an older book, and I remember reading that and getting halfway through that and thinking, you needed an editor. You just said the same thing in 3 different chapters. I mean, like really good, rich material.
Yes.
Not putting the book down, but somebody else has to read it before it goes to press.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Whatever the book is.
I remember when I was in my 30s and I started writing a book. It was a motivational book, and I had my daughter's teacher was a PhD in English, and she went through the book and she redlined it from, you know, I had 4 chapters, and she redlined front to back, and I was so discouraged, admission, that I didn't write anymore.
Didn't write it. I know.
And as I've grown older, I've realized that she really was trying to help me, and I was young and I was defensive and I was immature, and I learned a lot from that experience.
I think there's something else though that's interesting is I'm an academic, right? I had a 25-year career, professor, academic dean. I still do consulting work in the field of academia. There is a way to give feedback that doesn't crush the person.
Yes, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
So imagine you wrote a love letter, and a novel it's a love letter. I mean, this one is definitely a love letter. So you write a love letter, and an English teacher gets it and starts to edit it, and it now it sounds academic and correct. Well, love letters aren't academic, and they shouldn't be correct. They should be more poetry.
Yes.
Right? And so when people often read my blogs, I can tell who's struggling with them because they're more almost not quite poetry, but poetic, as opposed to self-help. And so they're more fluid. You have to understand when you're editing what that person's writing. So
what are they trying to convey?
Yes. I looked for an editor for this book who wrote like mystical magic stuff, because she would get it, right? That there's a vampire and there's a kraken and there's sirens and there's, you know, the journeys in the dark, and
no kidding. And
don't try to make it sound academic. Because I had to unlearn academic writing to do this.
Of course, of course. You would never think of that, but it's so true.
Right.
You have to really go to a different level, and it's not down here, it's over here. It's just a different perspective.
Just a different perspective.
I remember when I was writing my book, my wife was, at that time, who is deceased now, was in hospice. And I was writing, I was writing, 2,000 words a day. And there was a very intelligent woman there who was also in hospice, and I took it to her and she read it and she says, from here to here needs to come out of the book. 75 pages.
Wow.
I smiled and I took them out. And she says, that's another book. But I mean, I was at a point in my life where I was able to say, oh, okay, look at it from a different perspective here.
Right. And understand that we're sort of doing like an emotional and mental like dump in like dumping all this stuff in here, right? And maybe it is 2 books. Maybe this chapter is for something else. Maybe this leads to a future something.
Absolutely.
Right?
A novel, yeah.
And it doesn't all have to be right there in that. So there's different styles, and who is your audience? Not everybody is going to love my book. So far, everyone who's read it has loved it, but right, that's a certain group of people. And so then I think there's that piece too, where we have to acknowledge that no, not everybody's going to love the book.
Yeah, yeah. I man, as you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, you know, you go in places and all of a sudden someone looks at you and just doesn't like you for whatever reason.
Whatever, I know.
Yeah.
They don't like the color red. You're color coordinated today.
You look like my gym teacher, or
That's right.
you know, you remind me of someone who was mean to me, and it's like, I can't control who likes my book, but I have the control of making this book as broad spectrum as I can, and I can't worry about who doesn't like it. You know,
Right.
the thing that I'm writing this book for is the people who are hungering for this kind of information, and that's really, you know,
Right.
what you have to do.
Right. And then you have to try to get it out in front of those people
Yes.
so that they know it's there. And my friends have been helping me with that. What's the category? And Amazon, and come talk to this group, and
Oh, man.
and you had me on your radio show, and so it takes work to get it so that the people who need to read it actually gets to them.
Absolutely. That was another, for me, that was a real difficult thing, was categorizing my book, because originally it was called Through a Caretaker's Eyes, and it was very difficult to call it a self-help book or a Christian story or a love story, or you know, and so I retitled the book, I re-released it, and I called it The Caregiver's Handbook, and I called the subtitle A Self-Help Love Story.
Which is it's a lovely title. It's
And
so lovely.
yeah, and I loved it, and I feel like a lot more people have been able to absorb it or to grasp, you know, the topics that I'm trying to convey.
Right.
And so sometimes it takes creativity, and it takes some experimentation, you know.
I know, and titles can be important.
So
right?
important.
I know. I had a working title that was terrible because I just had a title, and then the title came to me. Here's the funny thing too: the title came to me, and then when I was back editing the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I used that phrase, dark I didn't make I didn't consciously make that connection, but somehow the title came to me.
I think it's very nice, very good title.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
really do. It's almost like dark fire. That's mystical, and yet it's you know, it raises some curiosity. I think it's a great title.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I actually loved the experience of writing it. I loved the experience of getting it out there and pushing it out there. And then even, you know, the editing is so hard, but even then it was good because you reread phrases and think, oh, that's good. That part's good.
Yeah, you really appreciate what you. Wow, I did that.
I did
you know?
that. I wrote that. That's really good.
That, guys, I got to tell you, that's the thing. When you start writing, all of a sudden you sit back and you go, man, that's out of me.
That's me. I did that. And that's good.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
You know, people who know me know that I pride myself on my cooking, and there's nothing like a beautiful dish that's delicious. And when you have a title of a book that's you know, raises some curiosity, and then you have content that's so meaty and so useful and so, you know, thought-provoking, it's like you've done what you were supposed to do, and you've succeeded in your craft.
Right.
And so,
and I think there are so many people out there who want to write, and
yes.
you know, I wanted to be a writer since I was a child. I got deflected and sort of blocked many times over and over, and the writing became journaling, which then that stopped for many reasons, and then because it didn't feel safe, it probably wasn't safe, and then I began writing academically. But there was always that piece of me that I'm not in that place of love and fear when I'm writing academically. And I have to say, when I'm writing really well, it's a little scary. And it is. It's almost like this, I'm loving the experience, and it's a little scary, and that's when I know I'm writing well.
Absolutely. You know, passion is such a scary thing for people, because it's like I'm committed, and yet I'm you know, I'm feeling this emotion, and yet there's so many dynamics that are involved in it, and it gives you so much more power to express yourself.
Right. And I think that what's scary is we show up. Like if you read this book, there's just pieces of me in there. You may not know what pieces. Same with Way of the Well.
Wow.
Absolute pieces of me in there. And again, you may not know which pieces, but you feel sort of naked when you put your book out there.
Oh, you are. You are
Right?
exposed. I mean,
Yeah.
you are really laid out there.
And so it is that willingness to do that, that also, like you've put all of it into the book, as opposed to, I'm going to think it through, which absolutely academically, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to make sure the message is clear, I'm going to do that. Fiction is different. At least for me, it's different.
I think so. I think so. I think about, so many guests that we've had, Manuel Ramos, he's written 10 novels, and
Wow.
he's best-selling author, and I mean, to have him on the show is not only humbling but so revealing.
Yeah, right.
To be able to just get the perspective of this guy, and he says, I never knew how it was going to end. I just started writing. My characters started developing, and so that's really what it is. It's page one, guys. It's page one. That's where you start.
That's where you start.
What kind of information or advice do you have for someone who's sitting there listening to the show, who's got a pen in hand or their tablet right in front of them, and they just don't start? What do you tell them?
Sometimes just get one good line. One good line. And it doesn't have to be the best line, and you might go edit it later. My starting line at one point, thought it was cute, and it was terrible. But I got the one good line. My blogs start, I'm out walking, and I get one good sentence. I'm like, wow, that's a good sentence. Boom, I can start there and go. And honestly, in fiction, or actually also in nonfiction, you might find that you're in the middle of the book when you start, and that's okay.
Yep.
Because you started, and then you might realize you've got to build something in the front, right, to support it. But sometimes one good sentence, and I get an entire 5-paragraph blog from one sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 3 words: no wrong answers.
Correct.
Guys, if you're writing, you can delete it and rewrite it. You can put that page 1 after page 30. It doesn't matter. Page 1 is the most important step, and then everything's going to come to you after that.
Right. And don't edit it as you go, right? Don't
Yes.
don't
Man,
spend
big
all
mistake.
day on one sentence.
Yep.
Don't do it. Just
Make the
keep going.
mistakes, keep typing, keep writing. I so agree. I had a friend that kind of coached me when I first started writing, and he said, you don't have to make every word correctly spelled or your grammar. Nothing has to be correct. You just write, get it out, and then come back and you clean up the mess.
I know spell check was created for people like me. I can't spell. I have a PhD. I cannot spell. Done. I'm not gonna worry about it. But there's spell check, and there's editors, and so okay, I get that. You've got to correct it at some point, right? But that not at the beginning. At the beginning, just let it start to flow.
Yes. Guys, I know that there's someone out there who has a wonderful story to tell. And has sat on that story for many years. Some of you have, I've talked to people who have just emotional tearjerkers, people who have powerful how-to stories, people who have stories of their own life experiences, and all you got to do is just get page 1 written, guys.
Or you know what? If you've got a great story, do what I did with Dark Fire. I had a story I was telling people. I kept telling the elements of the story. And so speak it. Talk it.
Yep. I love when you started out by saying, I spun a story.
Yes.
And that's so cool, because that's what I love to do. I love to be a storyteller.
Spin a tale.
Yep. And in fact, when you were talking, it just came to my mind a terrible, spooky story that I told once at a campfire. And I'm going to go home and write that out.
And then see where it goes.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
What do we have to lose?
Absolutely.
Guys, we're just about out of time. You've been watching The Weekend Boost on KUHS The Stream. I am Paul Lane. We have been talking to Dr. Elisa Robyn about her new book, Dark Fire. Guys, get this book in your hands. Remember, first 5 who reach out to us going to get a copy of this book. And
just have to let me know. Go to my website, Elisa Robyn, ELISAROBYN, ElisaRobyn.com. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, where am I? Twitter, Instagram. I'm like everywhere. But go to my website and you sign up for my my blog, and my email's right there. Message me and say, hey, I signed up, and I need your email in order to send you a copy. It's a Kindle copy, If you don't have a Kindle, it's fine. You just download the free app on your phone or your pad or your desktop or your laptop or whatever, and you can read anything just with the free app.
Guys, again, thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for Paul Chavez and Deep Cuts, Mr. International, coming up next. Thank you for joining us, guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Dr. Robyn.
Thank you. This was great.
Pleasure. Real pleasure.
Uh-huh.